Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, hello, my name is Noel. Thank you so much for clicking on my video. I'm so glad you found me, and I hope you choose to stick around. So as you guys can see by the title of the video, we are making freezer meals today. Woo woo! This is definitely a video that I have wanted to create and film for you guys for quite some time, so I'm so happy that I was finally able to do it and get it up for you. I have 6 freezer meals on my list to make for you all today, and I chose these meals basically just based on items that I already had in my pantry or my fridge of things that I really just wanted to use up. So this is a great way to do that. So first off, I decided to chop up really small a whole bunch of onions because I will need them for a few of my recipes that I'm going to be making today. So I figured I would just start off with that, get it all done in the beginning, and then I could just add it to whatever meals that I needed to. So over here on the stove top, I have started to brown up 2 different pots of ground beef. These are going to be for 2 different freezer meals. One is going to be for a tater tot casserole, and the other one is going to be for lasagna. So as you can see, I'm just using my little meat chopping tool here to very finely break up that ground beef. I really like when ground beef is broken up really well. I don't really care for it so much when it's in big chunks, especially when I'm putting it into like a sauce or something like that. I picked up this little meat chopping tool off of Amazon, and I'm sure it was like $20 or less. So I will link it in the description box if you guys are interested. You can check that out. To both of the pots, I have also added some of the finely chopped onion that I chopped up earlier on. Now I'm also going to be adding a lot of garlic powder and some black pepper, really bring out those lovely flavors and just give those a good mix so everything gets nice and well incorporated, so we have nice flavors running throughout all of the meat. After letting the ground beef sit and simmer for quite a few minutes, let that onion get nice and soft, I am adding in to one of my pots a can of diced tomatoes, and this is going to be the start of my meat sauce for my lasagna. Now I'm also going to add in a can of just some regular old spaghetti sauce, just one that I had in the pantry that I wanted to use up. And I'm just going to stir that in. And usually what I like to do when I'm making, a spaghetti sauce, a meat sauce, what have you, I really do like to mix in different types of sauces. So then I also have a jarred sauce, and this is a bit more of a chunkier sauce, which I love, and it has some garlic and different seasonings. And then I'm just cleaning out the can here that I had from the spaghetti sauce, the first can, just mixing that all in. And honestly, meat sauce is one of my favorite ways to add in some vegetables, especially if you have more pickier eaters in your house. I love putting in, finely chopped spinach, green peppers, mushrooms, and as long as you cut them up pretty small, honestly, I don't ever find them to be a problem, but you do you. Now I'm just going to let this simmer on the stove for a little bit, let all those flavors combine and meld together, and I'm going to start working on a breakfast meal prep. So over here, as you can see, I am just breaking up a bunch of eggs, and I'm adding this into a bowl, scrambling it up really nicely, and then I'm going to start adding some different ingredients because this is going to be the start of some egg bites. So first thing that I'm adding to the eggs is just some, basic salt and pepper along with a little bit of garlic. If you guys have freshly chopped garlic in your house, then I would definitely advise you to use that in all of these recipes. I didn't, all I had was the powder, so that is what I'm using. I also added in just a splash of milk just to kind of help the eggs be a little bit more fluffy when they come out of the oven. And now I am moving on to cutting up this red and yellow pepper. I'm going to be adding this into the egg bites as well. So as you can see, I just kind of slice them down around the core, slice them into small little kind of like matchsticks, and then chop them into little pieces. I like the smaller pieces of pepper in the egg bites, or anything that I'm adding into the egg bites for that matter, only because they are pretty small. They're only going to be the size of, a muffin tin each. So you don't want to have like a huge piece of anything sort of hanging out. So I say this because my next ingredient that I'm going to be adding is some finely chopped spinach. I actually had a bag of open spinach in my fridge that I knew was going to go really quickly, so I definitely wanted to use it and add it into some of these recipes. So I am very, very finely chopping the spinach, and spinach is so good for you, especially when you add it into the breakfast, start of your day. It is absolutely amazing. So I am just throwing that into the eggs now. I would say it was probably about 2 cups of spinach that I put in there, but when you finally chop it, it looks like, pretty much nothing. So now I'm just gonna throw in some of the red and yellow peppers. Now here, as you can see, I'm just adding in a few handfuls to start because I didn't want the egg bites to be kind of so overloaded with all of the veggies and things that I was adding along with the onion, as you could see, that I couldn't taste the egg. I still wanted to be able to taste some of the egg. So I just added, a little bit at a time until I realized, you know what, I am not going to be using this pepper for anything else in any of the recipes that I'm making today, so I might as well just add it in. I also had an open bag of some marbled cheese in the fridge, so I added in a little bit of cheese to that. And then I realized, you know what, I think I'm going to add a couple more eggs to this because I added so many vegetables, as I said, that I just felt like I needed to add a few more eggs to kind of even it out. Now over onto the stove top, I have my muffin tins out and I'm just giving them a little bit of a spray with some non-stick cooking oil just to make these easier to pop out when they are all finished cooking. I'm also taking my scoop here and I'm just evenly distributing the egg batter, I guess you could say, into each of the muffin tins. They only needed a scoop each. It was absolutely perfect. And I almost had 2 dozen, but I was just a bit shy, as you can see. But they are so colorful. I absolutely love them. Even before they went in the oven, they just look so pretty. So this is what they look like when they are all done. They're nice and poofy, and they do, deflate a little bit as they cool, which is great. But that milk really helps them keep their nice fluffiness, and I think they look absolutely beautiful. Now we are going to move on to making the tater tot casserole. With the other pot of ground beef, I am starting with 1 can of cream of celery soup and 1 can of cream of chicken. This is just what I had in my pantry. You can add whatever sort of cream of soup you would like. And then I'm also adding a can or 2 of just mixed vegetables that I had in the pantry, and some corn. I don't think I added that in here, but you can see there is lots of corn in there. And now I am just evenly distributing the ground beef mixture into 2 foil pans. And this is also another great way to add in some extra veggies. Sometimes I'll put in green beans or yellow beans or anything really that you guys enjoy that in a casserole that you think would go well with ground beef. Stick it in there. So now I am just taking my bag of tater tots and I'm lining them up on top. This is something that does take a little bit of time. If you are not so picky in particular, like I am, about how your tater tot casserole looks, you can just kind of dump them on like I did in the beginning and just kind of spread them out. But I have, that type A personality where I need to make sure that they are all even and symmetrical looking, so I took the time to spread them all out. Then I just took a little bit of cheese and sprinkled it over half of each of these casseroles, only because there's some of us in this house that like cheese and some of us not so much a fan. And now I'm just taking some tin foil and writing on the name of the dish, thaw in the fridge overnight, and bake at 350 for about 30 minutes. And yes, guys, I do realize that I spelled casserole wrong. I didn't realize this until I was putting them in the freezer, and I just thought, doesn't really matter, it's not a big deal, so I wasn't going to waste 2 pieces of tinfoil just because I spelt it wrong, so here we are. Now I am moving on to another breakfast meal prep, and I am starting on breakfast sandwiches. So I'm just cracking an egg into each of these little wells, going to be adding some salt and pepper to this, and then cracking the yolk and mixing it up just a little bit, because then I like to have, the yolk kind of spread out throughout the whole breakfast sandwich. I don't just like to have the yolk kind of just in the middle. That's just me. Whatever you please, guys, do it how you'd like. Then I just stick those in the oven for about 10-15 minutes, sometimes not even that, depending on how your oven is, just until they're cooked through, because you don't want to have the egg get too hard or crispy. Just nice and fluffy is what we're going for. Just like what you see here. These came out a little bit dark. Obviously, being a mom, I got distracted. Heard my timer, but I couldn't go get them. So the bottoms just got a little bit darker than I would have hoped, but all is well. They popped out perfectly because I sprayed them first, so make sure you spray your pans, people. Now we are moving on to making some of these chicken pies that I absolutely love and my family loves. So starting out, I have a can of cream of chicken and a can of cream of potato soup in the bottom of my pot here, along with 1 can of diced potatoes. I was going to say tomatoes there. No, potatoes, and a can of mixed vegetables. This entire recipe is just being made from stuff that I have in my freezer and my pantry. I didn't want to go out and buy anything for these freezer meals, so this is not necessarily the recipe I always use, but this is the one we're going to be using today. So I also had some leftover turkey in the fridge, and I just added in as much as we had, and as you can see, it did us just perfect. So I was able to make 2 pies with this. I have my pie shells down that I had in the freezer, and I just thawed them for a few minutes, and now I'm adding a little bit of an egg wash to the top of each pie, so then when I flip over the top pie shell onto the bottom one, they will stick together nicely, and I'll just kind of give them a little bit of a press together all the way around the edge just to make sure they don't pop off. So now, as you can see, I've added on the top, and I'm just giving a little bit of a squeeze all around the edge just to make sure those pie crusts stick together. These are a very easy pie crust to work with if you're not very good at making homemade pie crusts. They are also extremely forgiving if you accidentally, poke a hole in it or crack it. They're very, very easy to put back together if you need to. Now I'm also putting that same egg wash all over the top of the pie crust so it gets nice and golden when it's cooking in the oven. And now I'm just cutting some slits in the top. I guess they look kind of like a flower this time, just so the steam can escape and we don't have any huge air bubbles in our pies. So I'm just sticking that in the oven for about 30 to 45 minutes. And now I'm going to move over and put together my breakfast sandwiches. So while I was making the pies, I stuck these English muffins into the oven for a few minutes to crisp them up, but first I put a little bit of melted butter on them and they came out perfect. So I just added some ready-made bacon that I had in the fridge already, the egg, and then a slice of cheese. So as you can clearly see, these are going to be bacon, egg, and cheese breakfast sandwiches on the English muffins. And I'm just taking each one, wrapping it in some plastic wrap, and I'm putting those to the side while I put together my next set of breakfast sandwiches. So again, we're starting with a toasted English muffin. We are laying down some sausage patties, the egg, cheese, and topping it off with the top of the English muffin. Now, as you can see, all the ones that I made are either bacon, egg, and cheese or sausage, egg, and cheese, but I did make a few extras that were bacon and sausage but didn't have any cheese in them because, as I said before, we have somebody who is not so much a fan of cheese in this house, so I made a few on the side for them. Now I'm just taking the sausage breakfast sandwiches and wrapping them individually in plastic wrap, to help keep them fresh while they're in the freezer. Now on the tops, I'm just writing a B or BC for bacon, or bacon and cheese, and same thing for the sausage SC or just S for sausage. So now that these are all wrapped up individually, I am taking them all and putting them into a Ziploc freezer bag just to help, again, with freezer burn and whatnot, and to kind of keep them all in the same place within the freezer. But all you have to do to reheat one of these is take one out of the freezer, unwrap it from the plastic, and put it inside of a paper towel. Put it in the microwave for about 1 minute, and then after the minute, I prefer to open them in half and put them in for about another 20 seconds or so, and I find mine come out absolutely perfect. Your microwave might vary a little bit, so completely up to you. It's going to be trial and error for everybody, kind of like the first time or two. So you just have to see what works for you. So now I am moving on to Italian stuffed shells. So I poured my jumbo stuffed shells in a pot of water at the back there, and I'm just letting them come to a boil and cook through just until they're about al dente, just because you don't want to have them too soft because then they'll fall apart when you're trying to fill them. But down below, I am starting to work on my lasagna, and I have 2 pans that I'm making for lasagna. Cook these lasagna noodles all the way. I just barely started cooking them when they were boiling, and then took them out and threw them under some cold water because the moisture from in the freezer, once they start thawing and you put them back into the oven, it makes them cook all the way through, and it's not mushy, and those lasagna noodles hold together really, really well. So the layers that I do here is just a thin layer of the meat sauce that I made earlier in the day, just along the bottom so we don't have any sticking, a layer of noodles, then we have the sauce, Italian blend cheeses along with mozzarella cheese and cottage cheese, and then on top of that I have another layer, and we just keep going over and over until we get to the top. Now I really like ricotta cheese, but I didn't have enough ricotta cheese because I need my ricotta cheese for the Italian stuffed shells, so I worked with again what I had, and I used some cottage cheese because that's what I had in my fridge, and it tastes just as good. So as you saw there, I took my shells off the stovetop and drained them, and then just ran them under some cold water so they would stop cooking because they were perfectly tender but not too far gone that they were mushy. So now I'm just finishing the layers up of my lasagna, adding the last little bit of cheese and cottage cheese that I had, kind of mixing that together on the top is really how I like it. And then I also like to add in a little bit of, or not a little bit, quite a bit of parsley, some dried parsley along the top. I find that it makes it look so pretty, and it just tastes really good. So after all the layers are all said and done, you're going to take some tinfoil, yet again, write on what your item is, lasagna, thaw in fridge overnight, and then I am baking mine at 350 for about 35-ish minutes, I believe I wrote on there. But yeah, 30 to 40 minutes is what I wrote. And then we're just going to cover them up in tinfoil and throw them in the freezer. The last meal that we are going to be meal prepping today is the Italian stuffed shells. This is an absolute favorite of mine. I'm very much, as you can see, into cheesy dishes, and this is very much a cheesy dish. So I started off with taking some more of that spinach, chopping it up super duper fine, and this is going to be the start of our filling for stuffing the shells. So I'm taking my container of ricotta cheese, the spinach, adding in an egg and some mozzarella cheese along with some Parmesan and Italian blend cheeses, and mixing that all up. So this is the final mixture that we're going to be stuffing all of our shells with. And you add the egg in because it just really helps bind the cheeses together instead of kind of what's the word, kind of like melting out of the shells. This really helps, and I really do like the way that it gives a really nice texture to the filling. So you just give it a good mix, make sure everything is well incorporated, and now we get to finally stuff our Italian shells. So now we just take the jumbo shells, take a little spoonful, about a teaspoonful or so, and fill up the shell. You can fill them however much that you'd like. As you can see, I forgot to put some of the meat sauce in the bottom of the pan, so I did that first, and I've just added in all of my stuffed shells. It's a very simple recipe, I have to say. And now that the shells are in the pan, you just take some mozzarella cheese, a little bit more of that Italian blend cheese, which is what I love, and sprinkle that all over the top. You can add as little or as much as you like. As you can see, and as I've said, I really like cheese, so I added a bunch on top. Again, just trying to use up what I had, I wasn't trying to be wasteful here. And then I added a little bit more of that dried up parsley because I think, again, it makes it look so pretty and it adds so much beautiful color and flavor. So now I'm just going to be writing on my tinfoil, Italian stuffed shells, thaw in the fridge overnight, bake at 350 for 30 minutes or so, and you're done, guys. This dish is one of my absolute favorites, and I love how simple it is, and it's a really easy meal to make into a meatless meal. The only reason I had the meat sauce in the bottom is because that's the sauce that I made, but you can totally just make a tomato sauce or just use like a spaghetti sauce for in the bottom, and it would come out just as good. So this is what it looks like all said and done. I did make one of these for the supper that night because you are not going to want to make another meal, let me tell you. I'm very, very thankful for my freezer meals and very happy that I took the time to make all these freezer meals to help the craziness of the week feel a little less crazy. That is it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this freezer meal video. I am super excited about it. If you did, then don't forget to give it a thumbs up, like and subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you'll be the first to know when I upload a new video. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, I will talk to you soon. Bye!